Assume that there's somebody, a managerial potential in your store that you would consider making a manager. Do you offer him X percentage of the business, and if so, how much?
Well, personally, I'm not in favor of offering people percentages of the business. Instead, I'm in favor of offering them a percentage of the profits.
Okay.
Okay? But you need to have the same calculation every time. And you need to sit down with your accountant and other advisors and go through that. But it needs to be meaningful. Okay? It doesn't need to be outrageous, but it doesn't need to be miserly either. In other words, they have to have a vested interest in doing a real good job. My favorite, and because it seems to be fairly widely known, is Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A owner-operators, after certain basic costs have been covered, they get a significant percentage of the profits after the base costs have been provided for. And they are wise enough then to share it with their team, managers and others, so that everybody wants to do a great job. Okay, a highly motivated force does a great job, especially if they can literally tell every customer, it's my pleasure, because you're trying to meet their needs. And again, most retailers forget this concept of meeting the customer's need just way too quickly.
The idea that you are in the customer service business, you just happen to be selling floor coverings.
That's exactly what it's about. If all people want is pure price, that they're willing to do all the rest of the work by themselves, they're not going to be coming into a small and medium-sized store. They're going to be going to a big box retailer because or on the internet, because all they want is the cheapest price, and not necessarily the best product. Everything is based on price.
How profitable should the main store be before one considers an expansion? I mean, it would seem like, and what I'm thinking is, the big chains, they come up with a concept that they know works, it produces a profit, it works well, so they duplicate it here, there, and the other place. I suspect if you're an independent floor covering retailer, it's basically the same situation. You come up with an idea that works and you duplicate it. The only way you tell how it works is the bottom line, I suppose.
Well, why don't we benchmark against others? If all we're doing is looking at ourselves in the mirror, we're going to be seeing the same thing every day. There are some wonderful industry statistics out there. There's also the RMA statistics that are out there. Anyone can have access to these. Where you can
benchmarking is done. The AFA does benchmarking.
That's
like
right.
The groups do.
And you need to be looking at the industry benchmarks, or the RMA is an independent benchmark, and look at, okay, am I getting all out of my store I should be? Am I average, below average, or above average? You need to be above average. Now, there's an exception to this, and it's an important exception. You might have stayed too long in the same place. And the main store is cresting downwards. And you're doing everything you can there, but it's not going to get better because you're in a neighborhood where they're just not buying much flooring, and that happens. And so you need to be looking for a new one, taking into account all the things we talked about earlier, and using that as a transition to move products, people, stuff from location 1 to location 2, with location 2 probably becoming the new flagship. So, I think that's a realistic thing that's out there that people need to be taking into account.
That's an interesting point, that it may not even be a bad idea that when you expand, do that with the idea of having a new flagship store, and maybe at some point over the next year or so, closing down the original store.
Again, if its productivity is waning, then you need to do that. You need to have a succession plan within your business as well as for your business.
Now, you had talked about asking customers where would be a good place to go. There are also companies that specialize in that. I know all the big players use them to find a location. They do studies on income and a variety of things. Is that a good service to for a retailer, an independent retailer to use?
Well, those tend to be very expensive, okay? And as you point out, they're done typically by your big box organizations. If you're customer focused and you're trying to compete away from big box, and I think you really need to be competing away from big box, I believe your customers are going to help you more than the others. But then at the end, before you sign that lease, perhaps, again, using a real estate relocation firm or something, you need to get in your automobile and drive in concentric circles, okay? What's around me? What's within a block of me? What's within 2 blocks of me? And I think you should go out as much as 5 miles. Just keep driving circles. What's out here? What competitors, what potential competitors, what new and different residential communities are being built, what new shopping centers, so that you have a complete lay of the land. And you need to do that before you sign the lease, okay? But that's going to help you go, oh, you know, my people are telling me to put it in here, but right here there's just really too much of a concentration. Hopefully in your discussion they said, and our second choice is, and you look, and the second choice has a lot more opportunity with a lot less competition. You might say, okay, their choice number 1 is not the right one. I need to be in choice number 2.
And I guess traffic, obviously,
absolutely,
is an important element. We talked about managers, and hopefully there's a manager in the operation somewhere, a potential manager in the operation. You also need to staff up the new location. And I guess a lot of these retailers that I talk to, they're always recruiting. They're always finding people they would deem as being good customer service people and express their interest. If you need to staff up a whole store, I suspect you take some from the original store, maybe put them in the new store. How do you do that, and how do you find the staff? How do you recruit those people?
Life is different than it used to be, especially when we're dealing with millennials. And I'm going to define millennial as somebody under 35. And that's going to be the majority of your workforce. They're interested in many, many things. And you need to get on the internet and you need to understand a millennial. Because, you know, if you're 55 and older, you don't. And you need to understand what are their driving forces.
You may think you do, but you don't.
That's right. You may think you do, but you don't. So you need to understand that. But in developing any team, okay, the basics of team building are the same. You need to be investing in your people. They need to see a career path that benefits them in addition to benefiting you. You need to be, and part of that investment is training. You know, if you see that you have a potential manager, then are you taking them to floor shows? Are you spending time with them understanding the business? Do they ever meet the salespeople from the mills when they come in the door? And do they ever go to the seminars? There are wonderful seminars provided by the flooring industry. And hopefully you as an owner are going to them. Take them there as well, and they'll recognize that you are investing in them, because that's how you train up a sales force. If you're constantly investing little bits in people, and they see you constantly doing little bits, you're more likely to keep people. And it's out of that process that you're going to recognize who your potential new manager and new lead people are going to be, and you really need to continue to pour into those. Now, can you pour into everybody? Well, perhaps not, but you need to have a mechanism to identify and to make sure that there's a meaningful reason to stay employed with you.
I had a professional trainer on the program a couple of weeks ago, and he said that retailers, any business, needs to have a career development strategy. And that's in essence what you just said,
That's
ongoing
right.
training. And as you mentioned, millennials, if they don't see something like that, it's probably not going to be a very attractive job for them.
That, and also perhaps to the customer, okay? Do we agree that in flooring you're really selling fashion? Okay, well, if we're really selling fashion, does your sales force need to reflect fashion? Do they need to understand, and do they need to have training on what the new colors are for this season and next season? And do they need to have some semblance of style? And how different flooring types can come together. Mm-hmm. They need to be more than order takers. If they're just order takers, then there's no differentiation between you and the big box.
Mm-hmm. So many retailers that I've talked to of late, most of them are younger, are hiring new salespeople right out of design school.
Yes.
And it sort of takes it to another plane where price isn't as important because they fall in love with a particular look, I suppose.
Well, and again, most people don't consider themselves to be designers. And they really would like somebody that would help pull it all together. Mm-hmm. And you can offer services. And sometimes you feel, well, somebody's trying to use my services and then they're going to go somewhere else. Well, maybe you will be glad to help you with this project for a fee of blank dollars, which is fully refundable against your flooring purchase. And that way, if they're using you to go to the big box, you got your profit out of them without even handling the carpet.